respond to that. So we have to then take it that science is telling us that we respond. And that's what I want us to remember here, is that we respond to our environment. But as a young child, you know, a toddler, we start to identify with what we like and what we don't like. Even as a baby, actually, we identify with what we like and what we don't like. I can talk about very briefly, my daughter used to love these green gherkin things when she was pregnant. And when she would eat them, the baby, you know, my grandchild inside her would start kicking about as if, I don't like that, you know. So, and when he was born, believe it or not, even when he could smell, he repelled it as a child. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because he would never be fed it as a baby, but he remembered it from being inside his mother's womb. So that is something that we have to identify with. And you probably have children round about you or other people round about you that will say that they like things, they dislike things. I like that, or you know, it's that moment where you say, well, why do you not like that? And they say, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me. So there's the feeling of it again. But as we grow up, we start to pick up our own identity, or do we? Because we have the inherited identity through the genes of our family. So that's the genetics of our physical makeup. You know, you might have your mother's eyes, your father's eyes, the features, the skin tone, you know, things like that. So the build of the body, the shape of who we are. And we say, oh yeah, that family's all that shape, or that family has got all these beautiful eyes, or, you know, whatever the case may be. So we pick up genetically, we pick up feelings, and we also pick up traits. And the traits can be anything from 1 to 1,000,000 different types of traits that we pick up. And that's all in this lifetime. But what of our previous incarnations? Because in my job, or my life purpose as the past life surrogate, I have had the opportunity of being in other people's past lives. Now I say in, living them in that space, which has been phenomenal for me and for the people who I've actually worked with, which has allowed me to gather information because of the different vibrations. So for me, I go straight to the past life that is actually causing the person to be in difficulty, let's say, in this life. Now, whether that person identifies with their difficulties or not, they may just be going through life and feeling the struggle of life, not knowing what they're doing wrong. And you might also be thinking this yourself, well, yeah, how do I always end up, you know, in this particular situation? I try my damnedest, you know, to be the best that I can be, but yet this situation always seems to come to my door, so to speak. For me, that's past life syndrome. You're living a syndrome within this life, but it really comes from your previous existence. So think about it this way. You know, in life, we make so many choices. We could make about 1,000,000 choices a day. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but, you know, we make a lot of choices in our day. And some people will say, I can't make a decision, but you actually do. You make a decision not to make a decision. So you're still making a decision whether you think you are or think you're not. But when I ask you to go back and think about your past life, you may say, well, how did I do that? Because I don't know who I was or what I was or where I was. What I would like you to think about for a moment is the difficulties that you find in this life, the situations that you find yourself in that you have not wished for, the things that you dislike or actually think is horrible in this life. It could be anything from someone touching the back of your hand, touching the back of your hair. You might say, don't touch me like that. And you might do all these different gestures, because these are the actions that are what we term as the unspoken actions of your past life. They can be from anything. I just worked with a girl the other day. So I'm not going to give any names or pack drills, so it's okay just to talk about it in general. But she was a great athlete, but at the age of 22 all of a sudden she became ill. Now, I didn't know this till after the fact, but her story afterwards was that, you know, she became ill, she couldn't continue with her great career as a sports person, a very highly sought after sports person, and all of a sudden here she was. Her family had, in a sense, brushed her to the side simply because she wasn't famous anymore or wasn't going to continue in her journey of being famous. But at the age of 12, there were situations in her life, and again, that showed up. Now, when I was working with her, unknowns, I only know their name, I don't want to know anything else. But in her past life, so she's going through that in this life, she's been to doctors, she's been to everybody, all they wanted to do was do an operation. She didn't want that. Something said within her that she didn't want to do it, so she followed with her instinct. So she was following that. But now, you know, 30 years on or so, she's now saying, why am I still in this pain? Why do I feel this? And she says, there's so many other things that was going on in my life. But when you told me who I was and the situation I was in, so in her past life, she was a very lovable child. At the age of 12, which in this life she had tragedy in this life at 12, but in the past life. So let me say it this way. At the age of 12, she was a he, so his mother died by her hand being trapped in a trap. So there was nobody there to help her. So when they came back, him and his father came back from this journey, they were away trapping for livestock. And when they come back, he found his mother who had passed. So that was a tragedy. He blamed himself at the age of 12. He blamed himself. He should have been there to help her. He should have been there to save her. So at the age of 12, you think that was one tragedy too many, but within the matter of 4 to 6 months, his father died also, but of a broken heart. He gave up life. So he hated his father because his father gave up on him. So here he was in the wilderness at the age 12 and nobody there to look after him. So he struggled on himself. What a survivor he was. He struggled on. And by the time he got to the age of just before his 22nd birthday, he decided that he wanted to go and see the world. So he had this huge, enormous beard, which he used to scratch like this all the time, you know. And it wasn't until after the past life was finished, that we discovered that he didn't know how to shave because he never saw his father shaving. So he never knew how to shave. He didn't know how to get rid of all this hair on his face. But on his journey to find and explore, and this is where his life came to an end, is that he came upon another cabin. And in that cabin, he could hear a woman scream. So he burst down the door and he found that the lady's husband was actually beating her. So he knocked out the husband and picked up the lady. And the lady had then said, you know, that he'd always done that. And she was living, you know, just the way she was. So he said that he was going to find a new adventure, and did she want to come with him? He would protect her. So they started out and they became great friends. And over the course of 6 weeks or so on his journey with her to find new places, that he had an ear infection. He had something wrong with his ear. And the infection in his ear was distracting him because he was in so much pain with it. It started to swell his glands down here and up into the side of his head. But as that happened, because of this distraction, the girl had said, the lady that he had saved, and she said, I always sing. So she started singing out loud to help him, distract him from his pain. Unfortunately, he had took his eye off of the environment for that moment of time. And a bear came out and attacked the woman. He tried to fight off the bear, but unfortunately he didn't save her. And the bear eventually threw him about here, there, and eventually he found himself right under the bear. And he just looked, he saw the woman had actually been killed, and he took it again on board that he was to blame because he couldn't save her. And just at that moment, he had had an injury to his back and he was quite limp. And he just pushed his neck back like that because he knew that the bear was over the top of him and the bear was about to kill him. So he leaned back and the bear actually bit his whole neck off. It sounds gruesome, but the good thing is that in this life, it's not so good, but it's good in a sense, because he died thinking that he couldn't save his mother. He was angry at his father because he couldn't save his father. He tried to plead with his father. And here he was again, after saving this woman, now couldn't save her either. And in this life, this lady has had a major problem with her neck and her back. And that was the injuries that she sustained. And she said, it's exactly what you said. It's as if my neck is cracking and crunching. And that was what the bear had done. In this life, she's had the death tragedy at the age of 12, which was, it wasn't a death, but it was a death to her. She left somewhere that she really loved, and that was her world changed completely. And that's what happened when his mother died. His world changed completely. And the journey for him at the age of 22, that was when it was at the age of 22 in this life that she had this unknown illness that took place within her. Doctors and specialists couldn't really find anything wrong with her, except for the back of her neck. But she says, I knew it was more than that. She says, and I have always, in this life, I have spent my entire life trying to help and please other people. So the moral of the story is that I want you to think about what you do, what your patterns are, and what you do within this life. What patterns are you attracting? I called this misplaced karma for this girl, simply because the karmic debt wasn't hers. There was no debt for her to pay in this life, yet as a transmitter and a receiver, she transmits that image of I failed them all, I failed them. So therefore, in a sense, she should be punished in some way. But the some way is the mimicking of how she died. The breaking of her neck with all the way that the bear crushed her neck as the bear bit into her body. But he didn't ask that, as she was a he in the past life. So he didn't ask for the bear to come out and kill him. He didn't ask for his mother to put her hand into the trap and while she was on her own. And he certainly didn't ask his father to die, in such a sad, traumatic way with the loss of his mother. And he certainly didn't ask for that lady to die either. But he took on board all the blame. And so therefore, in this life, the vibration of all that trauma and the suffering and the aloneness of that 10 years in his life. And she had actually said that she was suffering for 10 years in this life as well. She says, I have felt alone for 10 years. So she's mimicking from the past vibration into this life. We are transmitters, but we're also receivers. And within us, what we transmit out is actually what we will bring back to us. So the vibration of her past life was still mimicking into this life, and therefore bringing on multiple different levels, not just a receiving level, but multiple levels of the soul is transmitting out the karmic information. It's what you take on board. So every time you have a thought, that's my fault. make sure you're taking the blame for something that you really did, and not because of circumstances that somebody else prevailed. So today I wanted you to think about that, and also to talk about the power of who you are in thought, because these vibrations are like you, as I said, you are a transmitter, and everything that you think, you transmit out, which then comes into action in the universe. So all the vibrations that you're thinking of. So if you're sitting for a moment thinking, oh, my life is boring, it's this, then all you're going to get is boring stuff back. So start thinking positive. Think of all the things that you want to do. Think of all the things that you want to achieve in life. And then align your energy to do just that. Achieve the positives that you want to achieve in life. Even if you think, I can't afford that, or I can't do that because I don't know how to. If you think it, you will receive it. That's my motto. You know, if you think it, it's attainable. And therefore, it doesn't matter. Don't think money.